anger, gender, justice, sex, relational memories, flashbacks of the past. Folks, we meet under an Aries full moon, September 29th, leading into an eclipse season. So we're going to discuss the astrology of October 2023 here and now. Now, a brief introduction. Astrologers cover different topics. There's too much to cover. Astrology is everything. What we speak to in these videos are the deep down underbelly undercurrents. We're talking about the major themes affecting each and every one of us, not only the what, but the why we're having the experiences that we do. This is evolutionary astrology. Now, admittedly, the fact that I'm broadcasting this under the full moon itself is also a bit of an indication. Timothy Halloran, your guy here, is a bit in it myself. I find that I am like the weather reporter who's actually in the middle of the hurricane with the microphone and everything swirling around. And that's what allows for me to speak to some of this astrology, is I am right there with you in it. At RasalilaCommunity.com, we've set up a community not only to talk about astrology and what's going on, but to provide real support while we're actually living, surviving, and going through these experiences. And so we have new circles at the Rasalila community. I want to thank my friend Mango, who is a fellow astrologer who recently began a grief circle. So for those of you who may be going through it, you want to stay in touch with me. I also offer Q&As. My Astro School is all available at the community. Now, to talk about the astrology, in my 10 years of observing and doing these broadcasts, these eclipse seasons are some of the most pivotal times in our experience. Every 6 months, the sun joins the moon's nodes, which is the point where the moon conjoins the ecliptic. So every 6 months, the sun and the moon join at the ecliptic, and we have a phenomenon known as eclipses. So our next new moon will actually be a total solar eclipse in Libra, which we will certainly begin to shed light on today. That will be followed by a lunar eclipse in October 2023. Now, the moon's nodes are 2 points. The moon goes over the ecliptic to the north. The moon goes over the ecliptic to the south. What we're experiencing in October 2023 is a south nodal eclipse. And the south node does have these massive undercurrents. In fact, the south node of the moon does sometimes get a bad reputation, and we're going to want to clear that bad reputation so we really understand why the south node can bring up so much that can be challenging. But let's talk about it. The south node is the past. And so when we have south nodal eclipses, which takes place every year, we've got an eclipse on the south node, 6 months later, eclipse on the north node. Like the ticking of a clock, there is this tide between the past and the future. And what can be confusing about this is when we have a south nodal eclipse, or where we have planets conjoin the moon's south node, such as right now, there can feel like we're moving backwards, or these themes of reliving the past. And what's so important to highlight is that evolution happens through both tidal movements. When we are having a north nodal movement, we're having new experiences coming in. It's fresh, it's tasty, it's exciting, and that's how our soul is evolving. When we have south nodal dynamics, our soul is evolving through a necessary reviewing, or sometimes even a necessary reliving of themes of the past. And that may very well feel like we're moving backwards, but it's actually the evolutionary necessity that we go back in order to go forward. Okay. So the main backbone that we're going to speak to, again, this is the evolutionary undertow, is the moon's nodes in the Libra-Aries polarity. And we just saw Mars go opposite to Chiron on the 24th, aligned with those moon's nodes. So the south node of the moon is going to conjoin Mars in Libra on the 4th. Meanwhile, we've got Chiron hanging out in Aries on the moon's north node. Now, this brings up a tremendous duality and paradox between this reliving, this memory shadow, and the need to assert things in a new and a different way. There's also so much with the Libra-Aries theme, so much to do with union, collaboration. Libra has to do with relationship, harmony, balance, and mutual support. Libra means we're seeking balance right now. And when we speak to this Mars South Node conjunction, this is a tremendous amount of the review that's taking place, is what's fair, what's not fair, and how can we stand up for or even fight for what is right. Now, there's this dichotomy between this necessary collaboration, connection. We need others in our lives, Libra. We cannot go it alone. And at the exact same time, Chiron on the North Node is bringing in new experiences through this initiation of what's different, which can include necessary separations, going in different directions. I mentioned in prior videos, it's like when everybody is on a boat and we've got a crew, everybody's got a different role. You know, somebody's on the steering wheel, somebody's operating the sails, so every role is needed, but every role is different as well. And that's some of the dichotomy that we're looking at. Again, this also brings up everything to do with gender, relationships, sexuality, with this underlying theme of seeking balance, justice, and harmony. So there's this paradox of reunion and remembering, as well as initiating in a different way and separating. And this is particularly emphasized by the fact that Pluto is square the moon's nodes, which creates this hard reverberation between Libra and Aries. I'll use myself as an example. I was born while Pluto was square the nodes. My moon's nodes are in the 2nd, 8th house. So I'm constantly reverberating between the 8th house, intimacy, going deep, examining souls, pushing my edges, going into the unknown and facing my fears. And then it becomes too much. And the 2nd house Taurus is, I got to have space for myself. I got to slow down. I got to relax. I hermit myself. I isolate myself from everybody else. And it's almost like I'm going back and forth forever. I'm either isolated by myself or I'm getting overstimulated and claustrophobic with the amount of intimacy and merging and things getting thrown up every other minute. And that's happening for us all collectively right now between Aries and Libra. It can be just like, I love them. I want to go my own way. I really need this connection and collaboration. I really need to protect and defend myself. Mars on the South Node brings up all themes to do with instincts, anger, and reaction. And how this is taking place with Mars in Libra and opposite to Chiron is these are triggers that are largely happening through relationship. We can all guarantee in some way, shape, or form the feedback that we're receiving from others can be catalyzing. And if there were ever an important time for conversation, if there was ever a highlighted period for counseling and therapy, or maybe even especially relationship counseling and therapy, we're talking about it right now in October 2023. We need that mirror, we need that feedback, and it's giving us information that's allowing us to recognize more of our own way, more of our own needs, and more of our own desires. And this is, again, where the ping pong's happening. It's like, I get my desires without them, or I get them without my desires. How can we share our desires? Either I'm going my own way completely, or I'm having to completely give up my own way. So guess what we're talking about here? Themes of codependency. And what we're moving towards is cooperation, independent cooperation. I am the captain of my own ship. I know where I'm going. You're not going to throw my ship off. Can we sail together? And how long are we going to sail together? Do you have a different destination than I have? In which case, how much of this trip are we doing together, and when are we going to part ways? So on and so forth. This is the metaphorical example. Aries has the need for freedom. Libra, the need for mutual support and exchange. It has to be fair. It has to be balanced. And that's exactly where Mars on the South Node in Libra is going to be remembering so many relational experiences from the past. If there was ever a time where soul contracts were highlighted, it's right now. If there were ever a time where we're needing to look at past relationships, talking to our exes, remembering these past experiences, it's right now. And this has a lot to do with gender. This has a lot to do with sexuality. And I have to say, I do not think that the world has been a perfect one. I have to say, I don't think there has ever been a perfect balance or harmonization between genders, certainly not in thousands of years of patriarchy, and I severely doubt it was really fair, balanced, and happy-go-lucky during the matriarchy. Women, let's bear that in mind. When we're fighting patriarchy, just remember that the seesaw goes back and forth, and we have to maintain this balance. Because if we're just fighting the man because the man was in control in the past, we end up recreating the man. We end up creating these wars where nothing actually reaches equilibrium. And that's what we can really be reviewing right now is look at this trigger, it sent it this way. Look at this trigger, it sends it that way. We're talking about competition. We're talking about balance, And how do we feel when we're a winner? And how do we feel when we're a loser? And how do we receive an experience where there is this lack of equality? And how do we speak up for that lack of equality? What needs to get spoken up for? This is going to be a time that calls us all to take a stand. And we're all needing to take a stand in unique ways. Mars Aries is the function of protection, defense. Could we ever say that anger in and of itself is wrong? And that in any given circumstance, no matter what a soul is thrown, they should never become angry. I hear some of these ideas in spiritual centers, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of avoidance in the spiritual realm. And so anger tends to be demonized. If you have anger, if you're an angry person, that almost means you're a villain or a bad person in many social circles in our culture. Anger is not well understood as a jet fuel, as a raw energy that is there to be used and implemented. So it's not about whether or not anger exists, it's how we're using anger. And we should never in ourselves judge ourselves for having instincts, reactions, or responses, even if it's us putting our foot down. Enough is enough, Should we never experience that feeling or emotion like we should be Jesus Christ on the cross and everything that gets tossed for us, we just take with a smile on our face and say, yeah, I really even doubt it was that way for Jesus. So no, this is a time where we have to respect anger in order to use it as passion and jet fuel, instead of as a destructive mechanism, because obviously anger can become destructive. It can become harmful. It is like playing hot potato. Much easier said than done. The point is, Mars on the South Node in Libra, we're reviewing all of these themes, and there may be these punch-and-gut instincts standing up, calling out, this is right, that's not right, this needs to change. And a lot of this ping-pong is, again, taking place in relationships. Any of my listeners that are therapists, I'd be interested what you're experiencing from some of your clients right now. Now, here's the point. The moon's nodes are always a polarity. We're always largely getting pulled back and forth. This is the actual evolutionary mechanism of all life itself. We reverberate between the past and the future. That's how our soul evolves. But we want to bring this equilibrium. It's like, do we jump into the future and forget all that's happened? The past has a wealth of treasure. all of these experiences, all of these memories has taught and informed us to be the best that we can. That's again why the South Nodal eclipse is largely a evolving forward by taking a step back through this reviewing. So to have this in equilibrium, we're not throwing the past out and we're not getting super identified with the past either. And that's going to be the challenge of right now, isn't it? Because again, when we have an enormously regressive time, regressive feels like moving backwards. It feels like we're stuck in the same particular relationship, the same particular role, the way that people treat me, the way I express myself and how it is or is not received or understood. There's so much information here. And the point is we have to recall and remember all of that and then apply a conscious effort, North Node, to bring in something new and different. And that's where we see Chiron right now, which again can be a healing through separation. This is a fundamental healing of masculinity, and I'm not speaking about gender identification, of course. When we talk about masculinity, we're talking about the outward yang solar energy. The energy that's confident to initiate our own independent path moving forward. Like if we're all sleeping at night and something really scary rattles the door, it's Mars, Aries, jumps up and goes to the door to see what that scary thing is to protect the group. Aries is that protective, defensive dynamic. And where Aries Libra becomes the best that they can be, where they become integrated. We're not throwing the past out, we're initiating the future, and how we can be and do this right now is to be the exemplary knight in shining armor who practices chivalry, a code of conduct that stands up for justice, right? That's the good knight. We all have the opportunity to integrate and be the good knight for ourselves and each other right now, because we have things we have to protect and take care of ourselves, but we also can be really seeing what we're standing up for, fighting for, and protecting out there in the world by and large as well. So when we integrate Libra-Aries, what we have is someone that is able to listen to the other and understand their total difference, their needs, their wounds, their sore points, where they have a potential of spiraling, where they can have a potential to be very easily uplifted. How do we tear each other down? How do we complement each other to raise each other up? The knight is the one that is protecting and defending the rule of law that protects justice, balance, and equilibrium. So we have to even know what that code of conduct is. And a lot of these triggers and instincts are happening purposefully to bring these dynamics straight to us so we can affect these changes. Again, for example, this can play out tremendously in sexuality. This can play out tremendously in gender. How can we hold on to motivation? If we're to distill sexuality into its fundamental essence, we're talking about life force. Aries Mars is the blood. What keeps us moving? What keeps us excited to live day by day? How much can we provide that for ourselves without having to be dependent on others? And where are there absolutely natural dependencies? Because human beings are not born to live our lives alone. We do need one another. So that's the essence of what we're looking at, so that way we can stand up for and initiate a new code of conduct. The formula is that Pluto square the nodes is being resolved through the South Node in Libra, where our forthcoming solar eclipse will be taking place in October. Now, this has again been a tremendous reviewing period, so I've got good news. Things are going to start moving forward, but chances are when this broadcast is reaching you, we're right in between that. We're just coming out of a Mercury and a Venus retrograde, and they have not quite left their shadow yet. Mercury will leave his shadow tomorrow, and Venus leaves her shadow October 6th. So this actually takes us back the last couple of months. There's been some type of experience, reviewing, learning about, so much to do with creativity, collaboration, what we're sharing, what we're interested, and is it the right people? Are we able to express ourselves authentically for who we are? Are we supported and feel good to be that? Are we with the right people? So there's been for months this theme of experimentation, testing, trying new things. And this is completing Venus's whole retrograde. She's stationed retrograde square Uranus, and now she's squaring Uranus once again today on the 29th. So this can also bring up the theme of unexpected shifts, the rug being ripped out from under our feet. You thought they were one thing, now they're the other thing. We thought we were going this direction, now we're going this direction. New ideas, spontaneous, creative, innovative possibilities. But are they known and integrated yet? They're probably all just being discovered. And this is where things are going to start pulling forward now through the beginning of 2024. We've still got planets retrograde and stationing direct these next couple of months. So there is this tremendous reviewing of the past that's taking place right now. And we need to understand that that's the actual emphasis. There are loose ends to tie up first. And chances are we're really excited to get to the new. We're probably really sick of some of these old patterns that are repeating. And my heart totally goes out with you. I hear and feel you completely. But at the same time, we can just hold that this is actually the requirement. It's not a punishment. It's not failure. It's not you not being a spiritual enough person. Again, we have to know that these evolutionary tides between North and South Node happens concurrently with eclipses every 6 months. This could also be a time of reunion with people that we have formed connections with in the past, remembering them, the experiences that we've had, how we have supported one another. This is about giving each other pats on the back, making sure that we have that type of supportive dynamic going for one another. And again, there's some things to clear. There's some things to remember where there was a discrepancy that interfered with this harmony, balance, or mutually supportive equilibrium. And even this full moon being opposite to Pallas Athena brings up this Lady Justice type of theme. It also really forces us to get a grip because there's so much emotion that can come up with these south nodal regressive transits. Do we even see what's clearly right in front of us? As I mentioned near the beginning, this is going to be a paradoxical reunion and separation. That's kind of like the alchemical theme of the day. Again, October 2023 is just colored with this paradox of reunion and separation. So that's a part of how we're setting a new tone towards justice. These necessary flashbacks of the past have a tremendous amount of emotional baggage. And we have to digest that. We have to give ourselves the time. If we get a trigger with somebody, can we process that boulder of information? We're fuming, or we're depressed or sad or heartbroken. Can we receive that boulder of information, process it, calm our nervous system, and then give a healthy, objective response in that same moment? I'm going to raise my hand and say that's damn near impossible for me. I have to take time to digest that boulder. But the point is, while we're digesting that boulder, let's bear in mind that's what it is. It is not necessarily what's right in front of us. It's not necessarily the present. It's going to be a both and situation. So this full moon also calls this theme between subjectivity and objectivity, moon opposite to Pallas Athena to light. And we do need to maintain that objectivity while also not getting too cold. This is a balance, right? I see a lot of these pro-meditator spiritual people that are really, really gifted at keeping afloat tend to have the same shadow of avoidance. And that's unfortunate when somebody's going through a struggle and another person's keeping themselves afloat. Instead of that person keeping themselves afloat, lifting up the struggling person, it's possible for that person, if they're really objective and detached, to come off cold. And it's just like, why do you have such a hard time feeling that? I don't have the same past experience that you have. I'm not upset about that. And it's like, yeah, you don't have the same past experience. Don't let your objectivity and detachment push you into this dissociated and avoidant, inhuman, robot-like experience. And don't let the experiences of the past allow us to lose our center. And then we start fighting mindless wars, and people that can be supportive in our life can appear like enemies because they simply appear like the people who may have hurt us in the past. Let me try to summarize all of this in an example. This is a very common example that women on the planet at this time, unfortunately, have experienced sexual abuse in some way, shape, or form, whether it be obvious or subtle. I would be surprised if it wasn't the majority who has in some way, shape, or form experienced sexual abuse, and that creates sexual trauma. And one of the ways, there's lots of ways to work through sexual trauma, but one of the ways that we work through sexual trauma is through the exposure therapy of having actually healthy, supportive sex. And what is making that sex healthy and supportive and uplifting versus traumatic is the quality or the quantity of safety. A sexually abusive experience is not safe. There's no consent, there's no checking in, there's no support, there's no caring about the other. Whereas if we're going to, say, have sex to intentionally confront and move through some of these sexual traumas using tantric breathing, full awareness of PTSD, and going into the shadow in order to bring those old feelings and emotions into the container of the present with full safety and support. That's possible, right? But let's say that there's a woman who's experienced lots of sexual abuse and now she suddenly has a partner that represents safety. What's going to happen is that safe partner may still consistently trigger these old things. And this is what we're all doing for one another. It's not gender, woman, female. It's like we're all bumping into each other and causing these triggers from the past. And what's so easy to happen, therefore, is projection, right? I was sexually abused in the past. You just made an eye glance at me that sent the wrong impression. You fucking asshole. How dare you? And we could take all of our rage from a past oppressor out on somebody who really doesn't deserve any of that at all. That would be the worst way that some of these dynamics can go, is that absolute type of projection. And are we going to totally be able to avoid that at the same time? This is real life. We get triggered. Fuck, you stepped on my foot. Fuck you. Oh, you didn't mean to do that. Okay, we're still friends. It's like, this is a Mars South nodal dynamic, and the opposition to Chiron brings up that healing through the reflection of the other. So we just all need to know we got to take deep breaths. We got to get our feet on the earth. We need to know how to relax our body and nervous system. And there are things to fight for. This is about justice and equality. Chiron in Aries is about healing the confidence to initiate our own path and healing the confidence to speak up for what we want, period. Some of us are more selfish and some of us are more selfless. And this is a time period where if we've been more selfless and self-sacrificial in the past, that's what we're remembering right now. Where and how we've sacrificed our own individuality, our desires, and our freedom. And this Chiron is going to heal that first through a bit of a punch in the gut remembrance. Remember that time you got burned? Remember that time you didn't get what you wanted? How can we get what we want now? And how can we stand up for it? How can we initiate it without anyone? We have to be able to protect and defend ourselves on our own to some degree. And knowing that target, that's what Aries is. It's the hawk's eye. Knowing that target, that's what I want. That's where I need to go. Reflecting on the past, these relationships. Can we come together and support each other in these ways? Are we able to orient towards these things? Do we share these goals or we don't share these goals? Because even these questions are not going to lead into a black and white one way or the other. If you don't totally share all of your desires with a romantic partner, does that mean that you can't be in a relationship with them? That would be nonsensical to me. Right? So it's not an either or. It's like, oh, we share these goals, so we do it together. Oh, we don't share these goals, so we won't. I'll do it, you do another thing. Then maybe later we come back together, and that's what mastering Aries Libra is all about. These are our periods of reunion. This is what we do together. These are our shared values. This is what reminds each other of who we are in a very supportive type of way. And then we have our individual rituals. You do this thing, I do that thing. You have this group of friends, I have this group of friends. And they help to fill the needs that aren't being filled by one single person. So that way we're getting supported together, we're getting supported apart with others. Together apart, together apart. Weaving this simultaneous union and separation is at the very root of love itself. There is a need for separation in order for love to grow. If we're joint at the hip with somebody all day, every day, do we even remember who they are, let alone appreciate who they are? No, we merge. We lose a sense of ourself. Can we even appreciate who we are? So it is the dance between union and separation which allows love to continuously grow. The opportunity now through these triggers and instincts is to lay a foundation for a code of conduct, much the same as a knight in shining armor honors and respects the law of chivalry. We can all be good knights now. We can all be standing up for justice and equality in increasingly inspiring ways, bringing more harmony, balance, beauty, love, support. We're all supporting one another up and up and up into increasing ease, into increasing hands on deck. Now we don't have to do it the old hard beaten path because we're willing to confront and address those things that did not work in the past and initiating a brand new unknown through an experiment which could introduce a totally new reality. Folks, this is eclipse season. Every 6 months, it's as if the lights go off, all of the furniture in our home gets rearranged and the light goes back on and everything is completely different. We have the opportunity to harness this energy. We have the opportunity to bring in this change. And with Chiron on the North Node, we're talking about a major healing period here on planet Earth. We're going to continue to observe an uprising, revolution, people standing up and fighting for what's right. Gender, race, class, sexuality. This is about honoring the human being in our total diversity so that way we can feel that mutual support the way God intended. Being born on a planet with other loving hearts, how can we maintain and protect our heart so that way we can offer the fullest of ourselves back to others? How can we receive the support of others? Some of us are also learning so much how to receive. Libra is the balance of give and take. Which direction are you moving to balance that seesaw out? And again, for those of you who would like to discuss all of the above, please join us. We're going to have meetings at the Rasa Lila community. We've got a grief circle now hosted. I offer a Q&A where you have the opportunity to bring in your birth chart, ask any question, and I offer a free, it's not free. It costs money, my Q&A, but you get a mini astrology reading every month talking about what's going on in your life. So that's an educational opportunity to learn astrology. It is also a support circle. We are coming together increasingly at Rasa Lila community to support one another through these endeavors. It is such an honor to be the message delivery mailman for you all today. Astrology remains ceaselessly inspiring. The fact that we do get to recognize, oh my gosh, we're all in this together. Whew. I'm telling you, it's a huge sense of relief to me. I'm so glad to know that you're out there. Thank you so much for your support, your comments, your thumbs up. Your sharing my videos with others is hugely supportive. I also have a donation link in the video description below. I do humbly request, if you've received any support from me over the 10 years I've been doing this video, it is sincerely very, very helpful to offer a small donation back to me. So I, again, thank you so, so much. My heart goes out to you, wishing you all the very, very best, and looking forward to talking more about our forthcoming total solar eclipse in Libra next time.